Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes for April 8th of 2024. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I noticed that I didn't ask if there was any discussion. I overlooked that. Is there any discussion? Just want for protocol. No discussion. We have a motion and a second. Motion passes. Our next item is item number 037224. Communication sponsored by myself, Alder Pete, on behalf of the Racine Police Department, requesting the approval of an agreement allowing Officer Dennis, and I'm sorry that I may not pronounce your name correctly, Cecina, to obtain a possession and ownership of a retired K-9 Ramon from the Racine Police Department. Just brief background, I'm going to turn it over to Attorney Arnn, but this has been customary in the past as part of ordinance. It shifts the liability, and there's a small legal fee involved, minor, but I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was contacted by a member of the Racine Police Department on behalf of Chief Ramirez, who is here today to speak on the item. He requested that we transfer possession and ownership of a K-9 who is who is retiring at the same time as its handler. And typically, when a K-9 retires, the police department likes to sell the K-9 to the officer who has been its handler since the K-9 was purchased, just for liability reasons. Primarily for safety reasons, being that if we sell a K-9 to someone who it's not familiar with, there are risks associated with the dog biting or acting aggressively. So if you have any other specific questions, Chief Ramirez is here to speak on these as well.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none?
I'll ask.
Yes, please.
I just think if we could have this opportunity for you to talk about this K-9 and also this officer, so if you could please.
Yes. I thought I was going to get out of here with that.
No.
Not that easy.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for having me here. This past Thursday, Officer Dennis Zucchini died. Some people say it differently. He likes to say it a certain way. He retired this past Thursday, and with him he's got his K-9 Ramon. As in past practice, generally when a handler retires, the dog goes with him as well. This particular dog is named Ramon. He's a certified explosive detection dog, and as well as a firearms detection. So when we have instances where we need to go locate a firearm or somebody threw a firearm and they were running from the police, this dog is trained to do that. Same thing with the explosive. So it's valuable to us. Obviously, at some point, I'm going to probably be before this committee or somebody asking for another K-9 as well, just to replace him. But Dennis retired after 25 years. The dog here itself is 7 years old. He's getting towards the age of retirement anyway, and anytime you transition a dog, you want to retire because, as City Attorney New stated, it presents challenges in training and obedience where the dog does become a liability. And you never know if that the dog is going to be able to, the K-9 is going to be able to train with that new person or not. And if they have a family, you just never know how that's going to react. But for those reasons, I'm asking that I'll get retired as well.
Can I just follow up?
Yes.
Thank you for that. And it makes a lot of sense, for sure. Can you talk a little bit about what is our K-9 unit, like how many K-9s do we have?
With Ramon, we would have 5. Smith-Cliff just recently brought in Lokai, that was approved some time ago here. He's just now fully transitioned. He's out on the streets. We have a total of, before this one would be 5. But they can detect a number of things, whether it's explosives, whether it's suspect detection, whether it's drugs. So they have a variety, they get trained in a variety of ways. We do happen to have, we go through Patriot K-9, which is a police officer, Stephen Beal. He's the one that trains them. He does save the city quite a bit of money. Training them anywhere, it costs anywhere from $12,000 to $15,000 to train a K-9. And it requires several months, 3 months of training for that dog to be certified. And they get certified every year as well. They've been very valuable to us as far as especially when we go looking for suspects. of having an officer, you got a canine that's obviously much faster, can locate somebody, whether they secluded themselves in a pile of clothes and bushes and you name it, in trees, anywhere. These dogs are very good at detecting not only just people, but as well as explosives, drugs, firearms, stations, you name it. So they're very valuable to the police. Answer your question.
It does. Do we have a canine capacity?
We normally have 5.
So that's it? We only have
Yeah,
5
5.
transporting
5.
vehicles with them?
Yes,
So
and they
that's
work,
it?
that's their
That's our
part.
capacity?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they usually generally come through the sole for our law enforcement fund. It's generally how we get those cases, usually through private donation.
Yes, please.
I was gonna make a commentary, actually. So, I personally know Ramon and Officer Giacchini, so I know that, he's been a member of their family since he was a puppy. And probably a fact that, you know, a lot of people don't realize is that these dogs are a part of their family. They live with them 100% of the time. So, you know, this is kind of a big deal. So I fully support, you know, him leaving with Officer Giacchini.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, a motion would be in order at this time. Thank you, sir.
Move to approve.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations, sir. Take good care of Ramon. Thank you. Our next item is item number 0365-24, communication sponsored by myself on behalf of the City Clerk's Office, submitting a change of ownership application for a Class B intoxicating beverage and fermented malt beverage for Lush Adult Entertainment, LLC, DBA Lush Ultra Lounge, which is located at 1520 Washington Avenue, Marion James Agent, 3rd District. May the applicant please come forward. Will Attorney Arn please swear the applicant in? Thank you.
Raise your right hand, please. You do swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Attorney Arn, could you please let us know if there was anything in any reports, information that you may have access to?
I can summarize the Good Neighbors report for the committee if it would like.
Please.
So I did meet with Mr. James along with the Health and the Building Department to discuss his application. We discussed several issues. The first of which has to do with what he plans to use the premises for. I did ask him, due to the name and his previous applications from the City of Madison, whether he intends to use strippers on the premises. He stated that he wouldn't allow strippers. However, initially he was planning on letting his renters, whoever rented or leased the premises, to use it. I did explain to Mr. James that in the City of Racine, it's actually prohibited to have an adult entertainment business, any place where alcohol is being sold. So with a Class B license, you can't have an adult entertainment business. In addition to that, even if this location did not have an alcohol license, it would have to be properly zoned, and it's not properly zoned here in this case. So I did explain to Mr. James that even if he rented out the premises, he is still liable for any violations on the premises. It's still his license on the line, and therefore there are no strippers allowed on the premises, period. We also talked about the remodeling plans. He has 2 phases in which he plans to remodel the building. The first floor is pretty much done at this point. You do have a map that is attached to your application packet, and what the plans will look like. He plans to use the first floor for now, as well as the basement storage. When he completes the upper level, he will add that or request that it be added to the licensed premises. He understands that he can't use that floor until it gets added and approved by the committee. As far as relevant experience here, Mr. James indicated that he has not worked in the alcohol industry before, has never had an alcohol license. He will oversee the day-to-day operations of the business. I did summarize for him briefly the local and state regulations. However, obviously, it's not comprehensive, so I sent him a link to the Department of Revenue publications for him to peruse, and I certainly recommend that he does that. There are some nuisance issues associated with this particular location, and Sergeant Tillman can fill you in some more on that. We did discuss the building and health department permits. It looks like he has applied for those, and so far we have not identified any issues that would affect his eligibility. So those are the things that we discussed, unless you have any specific questions for me.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the attorney?
I'd like to hear from Sergeant.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I have a question. The Good Neighbor Report, is that usually included in the packet that we receive?
It is.
So, on here?
So there's a link to it
There's a link.
on the agenda that they sent out, and then it's also printed for your packet.
I knew it was somewhere, I just couldn't remember.
Oh, okay.
And then is the premise report, is that usually included with the agenda as well?
The premise report?
Mhm.
The license premise report?
Yep.
It is, however, so the ordinance requires that at its first meeting after the new common council meets, the public safety and licensing meets to conduct a training. The chair at his discretion can add any additional items. I believe the chair made the decision not to add that item at this particular time. So that would be pushed back to the next agenda.
So there wouldn't be a licensed premise report in regards to this location
Oh.
agenda?
So typically, the city clerk's office doesn't print the license premise report for each address when they submit the application. They can certainly do that if you,
Okay, just
in the future, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions at this point?
I think we have a lineup.
I would just like to hear from Sergeant Tillman.
Okay, so,
Yeah, sure. So the biggest issues there, is the 1518 bar. Is obviously right next door to 1520. Yeah, same location. They have a lot of loitering issues, especially in the back, because the parking lot is down below in the back over there. And the latest one we had was underage parties, actually, at 1518, which is going to get addressed. I've already with Attorney Arn last week. And then fights obviously in the back, bar time, and when the bar lets out, they've had some overcrowding issues as well. In the parking lot last week, they had parking lot was overcrowded so much that there weren't enough spots, so several tickets were issued, parking tickets were issued. So that would be another concern that I would have in that area as well, the parking issues. Sure. And then we've had several fights, as I said, at bar time that break out.
yes,
I
sir.
got a question for, didn't the daughter turn in the paperwork for the license for this establishment?
So this establishment currently operates under the 1518. It is, the agent is Shaquilla Buckley. She did conditionally surrender her license to this gentleman here, who is now applying for that license. So if the committee denies the license application, it would revert back to the current owner, Buckley.
Okay, and this.
But how long is that license still current though? And active?
That's what I'm wondering, because I thought she turned in all the paperwork. I didn't know it was a conditional surrender.
So the conditional surrender states that the surrender actually takes place upon the new applicant being licensed or approved for a license by the Common Council. So it is currently valid right now.
So when was this underage thing they had going on there?
That was April 6th. It was April 6th. And then, we were there as recent as April 21st. Unwanted parties, 1, 2, 3. Female was fighting, refusing to leave. That was in the back as well, in the parking lot. Because it's off the beaten path, so it's.
No, I get it,
So it's very easy for things to happen.
But then who was running the establishment on the 21st then?
So the applicant does not have a license yet, so he can't and should not be
Alright, so-
operating. So currently, it is the existing licensee.
Currently what?
It is the existing licensee.
Yes,
I just, are 1518 and 1520 connected in some way?
So 1518 is the name of the establishment, but is located at 1520 Washington.
Okay.
It's a little confusing, but it's one and the same.
any other questions at this point? Okay, seeing none, sir, we would like to ask you some questions. Actually, there's several, but I would start by asking, what are your plans? We've gone through your application packet, but could you explain to us what you actually plan to do with the location?
So I plan to, bring an upscale, sophisticated, restaurant, lounge to the uptown, metropolitan uptown area, and, make it completely disassociating myself and closing the doors to 1518 and making it a haven for the classy socialite to be able to come somewhere and have a good time in a safer environment than what's currently there.
How would you go about doing that? Could you give us some examples of, I won't say exactly a business plan, but I think the committee would like to know exactly how you would go about it.
So first, my target audience is going to be more of an older crowd. I'm teeter-tottering between 25 to 30. And also, I'm going to have like dress code, and I'm moving towards like a membership type of deal, so that way I have a record of who's all in the establishment at all times, so I know who's in. Even if it's going to be open to the public, but even to get in as somebody walking off the street, you would have to do a temporary membership. I would scan your ID. I would have like all your like information that is needed, so that way in the event that something does take place, I can be cooperative with the city of Racine, the police department, to submit the information that they are needed, so that we can address things a lot faster. Also, I would use that as a way for me to stop people from entering. So if I have a patron who is an issue or causing a problem every time they come to the bar, I would also use that information to keep them away.
Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit about those sound like great ideas, and I think the area could benefit on one hand from that, but let's talk about the experience side, and this is a two-part question. Your experience, you would obviously have to depend on staff to help you carry through your objectives. Secondly, the issues in the back, those are not going away, and people are not going to stop coming. They're going to the outside, that kind of thing. And the area doesn't have a lot of space, period. So could you please briefly explain that?
Explain.
How are you going to deal with the lack of parking, the issues in the outside and back, the low downstairs, that is, in the parking lot, all of those issues?
So I plan to hire outsourced security to secure that parking lot, and also I have a call out to the chief of police to try to come up with a better plan. I went over there today. His secretary is out today, and he wasn't in the office when I tried to meet with him. But I'm going to be working with the police department to figure out a way or a plan that we can come up with to prevent that hidden area back there, so I can get that lit up somehow, or figure out a solution to fix that problem. But as of today, I don't have a solution to that parking lot other than security and working with the police department to the best of my ability to handle and address those situations.
Okay. How are you going to handle the staffing issue? I mean, what I mean is, you don't have the experience running this type of establishment, and it's a great deal of responsibility. I'm sure you realize that. But I think the committee needs to get a better understanding of how I guess you could say, day-to-day operations.
Well, I plan to hire experienced bartenders and security guards and people who are familiar with the industry. And also, speaking on experience, if we're talking about experience go in many different ways. Experience is defined by knowledge, skill, and like practice. I don't have the practice in the field, and I'm very much so new to this, but I do have the knowledge. And with the knowledge that I've learned over the time of pursuing this business, there's a lot of things that I have learned. And I learned one of the most important things of this all, and that's what not to do.
Okay.
So I feel like if I don't do the things that I'm not supposed to do, then I'll be fine. And I also was speaking with the city attorney, and I was informed that I can use them as a resource if I have any questions or if I'm unfamiliar with day-to-day operations or certain things that I'm just unfamiliar with, that I can reach out at any time to ask them, and I will use them.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Yes,
Couple of questions.
please.
Is your address in Madison, or have you moved to Racine, or what?
So I do have an address here in Racine. It's 1912 Prospect Street, but I also have an address in Madison as well. And so this business, this is not going to be just a Racine business. This is going to be, I'm building a brand. So this is a brand for me, and which is why it's more than just a bar or a lounge. It's a brand, and I want, when people hear my name, no matter where, whether it's here or in Dallas, Texas, I want them to understand that, oh, this is a brand that we can trust. This is a brand that I'm familiar with. This is something that we can stand behind and say that this is a safe place to patronize or to go or to be.
So do you already have a business in Madison that you're running?
I do not. I withdrew my application because it was a much larger scale than this. The building was actually 30,000 square feet. And there was a lot of other things that were factored into that. And I would.
Like a strip club there as well?
It's not a strip club. I didn't apply for.
But you initially applied here for a strip club.
No, I did not. I never applied for a strip club.
Oh.
That was never a thing. You misunderstood the name for what I applied for. I never applied for a strip club. It's called Rush Adult Entertainment, meaning entertainment that involves that only adults can do. Not a strip club. Like drink, you have to be 21 to drink. 21 to smoke.
Okay.
All those things. But it's not a strip club. I would not have nudity.
Okay.
Anybody over here have any questions? Go ahead, sir.
I'm very concerned about the lack of experience because, you know, they were open there for a while. They've had their issues over there, and I'm concerned with not having any experience at all. And there was some nuisance activity going on there. And really, you said they're gonna talk to the police, see if we can quell it, but I would like to see something come forward that's concrete so we don't have the issues we had there before and if you get open. So I have some not real happy about this right now, so we'll let other people talk.
If I can comment on that, what's currently there is being considered a nuisance. I think a fresh start and a clean slate for anybody, if you've had issues there present and previously in the past, I believe a fresh start for somebody else will be better than what's there now because there's issues already.
Okay.
And I plan to address them. I plan to be proactive instead of reactive.
Yes.
Okay. Just a couple things. One is, I just happened to notice in the application, your address, your prior address, there's no dates on there. So we might want to have a complete application, if you would notice, before this goes any further in the process, if it were to get approved, just to make sure we update your application to have your address history filled out thoroughly there. So that was your Madison address, and then you also had a previous address of 1912 Prospect, but they have date ranges, just like they do for your job history. So that's incomplete on your application. So just to have that on file. My question to you is, Mr. James, in the area, I think, how will you handle noise or, any type of disturbances. Let me find that again just so I can read it to you and then allow you an opportunity to address us. You know, I like that you said, you know, you talked about like having a membership, and you went through a couple things that you were hoping to do, a membership for those coming in to your establishment.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but I hear a lot of whispering, I really
Okay.
can't hear you.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. You mentioned about the patrons that would come in. You would have them fill out some form of membership, so it would be open to the public, but you would have that, which is great. You know, a great approach, because I think you understand the concerns, and you're getting bits of it as we're, the type of questions that are coming at you, right? Having a liquor establishment, you know, it's a privilege, right? And so there's a higher level of responsibility, and you being the person who's presenting this business to us, you know, I'm sure you have to do your level of marketing. It's a commitment to you. You want it to succeed. You're investing money and time into it. And so some of the things that you said doesn't translate to what was written. And I would love to have had that written, because it's a level of security, or, you know, for myself, you know, when I'm sitting here thinking about, you know, how are we going to proceed forward? Because it allows us to take your words, what you just said, and now it's in written form, and it's to either help support you and how to bring that to life. Otherwise, we have another meeting in 2 weeks, another one after that. It becomes just lost with the air molecules, if you will, right? And so we're in a partnership as well. However, this is the time where it's most crucial for us, because once you're approved, if you will, it's just kind of like it's all the weight is now shifted on you, and we only see you again when there's trouble. That location, we've seen that come up for trouble before. So you're stepping in like a fiery anthill, if you will, right? And so now you have to try to erase our minds that we're not going to be putting something that we're going to get stung, if that makes sense, right? So those words that you had said previously of certain measures that you were going to take, it's not written on your application. And the part where you could have, it just says, I'm going to have to find it because I want to recite it to you and so you can clarify. But there was nothing there, quite honestly. It's like, well, we'll address it if it comes up. That's pretty much all it said. And it was your opportunity, kind of in a sense, to give us that structured business plan so we can understand when concerns come up. Don't just tell us, well, when they come up, we'll address it. Does that make sense?
Makes sense.
Committeeman Kelly, did you have any comments?
Just a couple questions. Why the name change?
Many personal reasons that I would not like to discuss at this moment.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
I found the area. So if we can just talk about this area here. So when it addressed, how will noise at the premise be addressed? As it becomes an issue, we will come up with a correction plan. So that's the part I'm having a little bit of a problem with, because it's like you have to sell us now. What would be that correction plan with noise? Which I'm willing to hear you if you kind of already thought of some ways that you're going to handle a noise.
Well, again, like I said, with anything you do, liquor more so, and a bar and lounge more so, there's a chance that there may be noise or whatever it could be with any place or anything that you do. There isn't a way to deal with it other than doing the best of your ability to handle that situation, which keep your patrons inside. Have security in the parking lot. Make sure they're constantly moving. Hey, you're in and out. Either you're in or you're leaving. Making sure people are clearing the premises like right away. And if that becomes a problem, then you contact the city of Racine. You utilize those resources. You call the police. Hey, I have a party who don't want to leave, or whatever you need to do to keep that from happening before it becomes an issue. Or like I spoke with Dr. Kemper, earlier today, I'm trying to touch bases with everybody in the community,
Right.
the residents as well as the other business owners to come up with a plan, to be proactive instead of reactive. I went and met with him to see what the needs were and what his fears were and how I could address that before it becomes an issue. And he explained some things to me, and I also told him my plans as it relates to those things. And I have a pretty good plan as I move forward in this on how to, and before I open, I still will meet with several other people to come up with a solid plan moving forward to prevent those things from happening.
Yeah. So, Mr. James, you've given us more than what I was on this application. So exactly what you were saying, I would have loved to see that written down here. Yeah. Well, I mean, what was written kind of just, it just kind of blows off the question completely, and that's not what we're asking for. Well,
Right.
Okay.
and so, but you reaching out to the members of the community that are directly surrounding this location, that's fantastic, because I think then you understand that you become part of the community, and so there's a responsibility to that community. So I really just want to commend you on that effort. That's brilliant, yeah. And then, you know, this application does need to get that piece filled out, you know, that area that was void of the history of your past addresses. But, you know, I would really encourage you, you have some great ideas on those plans, and talking about the membership and stuff, I would love to see that on here. And you talked about trying to address the crowds if they're noisy, moving them along, and having security staff, things like those. Like, that's great to put on there. That sounds like you come together, you put an idea and a business plan together. Here, it's just like I'm handing somebody who hasn't thought about it, oh, I'll address it when it comes, you know.
And I think there was an error on my part, and I should have put more there. And it also coincides with my membership, and that was, as I explained earlier, having a membership gives those patrons a sense of responsibility to abide by the rules of my establishment, or they won't be welcome. So if you have those members who are doing these things, then you can say, hey, I no longer want you here because you're not following the rules, and I have to follow the rules. And for the benefit of the people in the community, we should be following the rules, because it's not fair to everybody else around you that these things are happening. And people should also be able to come out and have a good time without other people destroying that for them.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
I have one other thing, but I can
Please.
open it up. Okay. You did mention you were contemplating, like, the age group that you were trying to think. I mean, you do say in here you use the word classy, and you brought that to life with how you defined it here before us. But I don't see anywhere in the application where you are talking about a certain age limit coming in, besides the legal age limit, of course.
Yes, because I'm still working on a business plan. I have a brief business plan in mind, but as I'm learning new things after the Good Neighbor meeting, after hearing other things and complaints from people in the neighborhood, I'm altering as I go to fit which is why I met with people in the community, and which is why I'm meeting with other business owners to come up with a good plan that will work, not only for myself, but for the other business owners as well.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with that effort. I just feel then this is a little premature, if that makes sense. I would have loved to see once you did that, and then it come before us, because I think those are great ideas, and you're doing all the right things. So.
Well, I have that, and I disagree that it's premature, because right now, what you have is a nuisance.
Okay,
So,
I'm gonna have to interrupt here. Okay, I think we both understand, for sake of time. Are there any other specific questions or concerns from the committee? Yes, sir.
One thing about this, the worst thing about this is if the entrance is only down in the back. And, I mean, the front door's always been locked.
It's not.
You can get out, but there is never an open, lit-up area back there.
If you look at the new plans that I sent everybody, there's a vestibule that's on the design plan, and that will be the main entrance. The entrance will no longer be the back.
And how long would that take? And how long before that part gets?
Do you need this?
No, we have it here, but there's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of unanswered questions.
I plan to completely redo that whole entrance area so that people aren't coming in through the back parking lot through a little small door. I want it to be lit up. I want them to come in from the front of the building, and there'll be a vestibule where they'll have to check in and submit that membership portion of that, and the back doors will be an exit, an emergency exit.
Any other questions from the committee? Yes.
I'm just wondering, how would that work though, if the parking is in the back?
So there's, I don't know if you're familiar with Washington Avenue, Highway 20, the uptown right there. There was a building next to the 1520 address that collapsed, and they built really nice stairs and landscaping and all that stuff that wraps right around to the front of that building. So they will members will park in that parking lot in the back and walk around through the side and enter through the front.
Any other questions from the committee? If not,
No,
yes.
I just come on. So this, the business plan that's attached to here, is this something current? This plan that's before our committee? Is this something that you just drew up? Is this
No,
what
that's
was submitted?
not correct.
Okay.
Page 20.
That's the same thing that she's looking at. It's an architect dated in 21.
Yeah, so there's a current plan, and there's also the revised plans that I plan to do.
This is the one you sent me though by email, correct?
Is that you asked for, so I sent you several. I sent you the
There we
plan
go.
Yes.
and also the current plan,
Okay.
as it is right now.
Yeah. We don't have that.
Okay. Are there any other
Yes, there
concerns
is
or
a-
questions from the committee? We have some people that want to speak, I believe.
Yeah, I do have.
And we also have many other items. Is there any, yes.
Okay, thank you. So, I have a double question. So we did not receive a current plan before us, so we just have, yep, is that look like the same one?
I see that.
Yeah, can we take a look? Thank you.
So, Mr. James did, I saw his initial blueprint on the original application packet, which is on page 19
Yeah.
of your packet. I did inform Mr. James that this was insufficient. It's not labeled. I can't tell what this is at all. So I did ask Mr. James to submit a more detailed drawing. He emailed me one, the first time he emailed me, he included both first and the upper and the lower levels. But then he changed the premise description to just the lower level, so then I requested a copy of the fourth plan for the lower level. And you did send that to me, and the first one was not labeled when you sent it to me, so then I again requested another copy, and the one that you sent me, the last one, is the one that the committee has in front of you. This one that you just handed me, you did not send to me, so I actually have the committee in the phone. So you can pass it around.
Yes.
Well, I do have a question. In regards to,
I had to revise it because I was doing it in phases, and I was talking to you, like, what pages are you gonna be doing it in?
Right, and
That was the phase portion. That's the phase.
I'll double check, but this is the
Okay.
only one that I got, but I'll double check.
Question about the lower level.
Okay, please.
So will all this renovation be done before you enter?
mm,
This is done.
The upper level.
okay,
Which one of you guys have a question?
I have a question, but it's more so about, timing.
Go
So,
ahead.
First, I'll just make a statement, that space, so in the work that's been done, there's a lot of work. I mean, it's a good space, it's a great, and I can see the attraction for business, it really is. And, there's a lot of movement or investment that's happening in the uptown area, which is a lot to be excited about. And so I'm thrilled when I hear somebody want to invest their time into do a business to help bring life to that area, because it needs it, and it's been decades before we, since we've seen like a really upshoot of good life. I would love for you to, I would like for myself, let me just speak from my stance here, those things that you've shared this evening were so valuable. I would love to see that more, because this is the time, because this is when we have to vote for it. That's why it's important. It might not be for you, because you have a huge timeline. You're going to be working on your business plan, just like I buy a house, I have every day that I have to think about it for as long as I live there. Same with your business plan. Every day you have to work in that business and look for ways to improve it. But this is when we have to vote on it. And I'm wondering what a 2-week deferment would do, if it would help. I want to first find out, does that do something with that, with the last agent submitting her thing? Would a 2-week deferment throw anything off until our next committee meeting?
No, nothing would change in terms of the old business.
So he would still be able, so nothing would create any hardship for that business, okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Oh, please. Any other questions from here? Yes.
The alderman's here. Can we hear from the alderman on this?
Well, I think we have a list of speakers.
And I wouldn't mind getting a response, because ultimately he's proposing a business. I would like to hear what 2 weeks would do for.
Again, 2 weeks will allow the current situation to have more situations, which would not be a benefit for the city, nor myself, taking on a liquor license. And also, you say you would like to see that, you would have loved to see that now. That ship has sailed and is not there. And I'm telling you from my mouth, which is just as valuable as you've seen it on paper. I can submit that later to new, or submit it with the application or whatever, just to add it on as an extra, just to have. But I'm saying it out of my mouth, and I'm standing by my word, that these are the plans that I'm going to do. And I'm still meeting with people in the community to come up with an even better plan than what I already have in place, what you heard today.
I so wish it would work that way. Really, it's just, when we're working with government stuff, things have to be in writing, right? Because, it's valuable you're having this conversation. I'm loving what you're saying. I truly am. And I think that it puts me at ease. It sounds like you're really putting a lot of thought in how to address the things that need to get addressed and where concerns are coming from, right? But being in writing, the thing is, these seats aren't permanent. They're constantly shifting, right? But that document is, so if I'm gone, if they're gone, we have something that communicates each way. So I hope you can understand that.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee? Otherwise, we have some people signing.
There, Alderman Davis is on there, as well as 2 individuals.
Could you read the first person?
Sure. Do you want me to
Could
go
you
in order of
let
order?
them come up, please?
Oh, yeah.
Up back there.
Actually, Mr. James is one of them, so.
Oh,
It's Richard Camber, and then Alderman Davis.
I'm going to ask you to please keep your time to 3 minutes, please. Thank you. Attorney Ryan?
Okay. I was here the last meeting representing Uptown, and just letting people know that we're trying to improve things. But liquor licenses have been very problematic, and specifically, it's after hours that we've had the problems. My next door neighbor was shot dead after hours, trying to keep track of his place. That's a big issue. when I first got, the notice of this thing, I thought, oh my God, all we need is a strip club across the street. And it's not a strip club, and which made me feel good. I just talked to the gentleman a couple hours ago, and he's got a plan. I can understand from your questioning that he might need a little bit more specific a plan. I do remember when Gerald's first went in there. That's where the bank building is, and it started out as a wonderful dining and dancing, and it ended up being nothing but headaches and shootings, and people were there till, well, the signs are still up, no loitering. So I'm hoping that you're the experts in this. You can, along with him, make this right. And we need something good in Uptown. Thank you.
Thank you.
The only other person that's
Alder Davis, please.
So, Uptown is in need of, some investors, some development to attract individuals that want to bring some liveliness to Uptown. But I do have an issue with the request for this license, with it going off the back of the nuisance property, the nuisance that has been occurring. How do I say this? I don't feel you should talk bad about folks in order for you to move forward with your business. And all I've heard so far is how the down talking of what's occurring at 1518. And ideals of a plan, as Capillion has mentioned. I want to see it on paper, so that when it's passed along, we know that this is what is mentioned and this is how the owner wishes to move forward. I acknowledge that 1518 has had some issues. They have been working into correct those. The incident, this past incident that happened, it was about them calling the state, remove this party that is causing disturbance at the establishment. So, just long story short, this, I believe, should be deferred for a couple of weeks to get more understanding of what the plans are for this location and how it will actually bring about a positive light to Uptown, because that is key. It's the positive light, not just any light. As far as the parking issues, 1518, whoever goes in there, we have to let folks know that Uptown has parking go across the freaking street. Use that wonderful pathway that has been put in there. So there's ways that we can eliminate some of these parking issues here, because there's parking in Uptown. But as far as Lush, I think we should defer that until we get more information on what it will look like.
Thank you, Alder Davis. Are there any other questions, concerns before we take a vote?
Yes.
Yes, there is.
Yeah, I just have a comment.
Yes.
Make a comment?
Please.
Yeah, as you know, I was here at the last meeting when the current, person who runs the bar in concerns of what was happening then. I still have a major concern whether the current business is not doing what they're supposed to. I told you I would come here and say, let's get rid of them. And now if the new business can do better, I'm in support of that also. But I think there should be a understanding of the minds between the change of the two businesses, that this committee knows exactly what they're gonna get with the new business. So I think it should take a little time to get all your information together, because I was called at the last minute just to see what's going on. So I came up here to see. And I'd like to see the young man be successful. At the same time, the two owners need to be successful in making their transition or whatever that might be. So you should take your time and look at it. And if come back positive, let it be. He deserves a chance.
Thank you, sir. Well put.
it sounds like a motion is deferred.
Okay,
I just wanna make
yes,
it
go,
before-
did you have a comment?
Yes, I do. It's nice when we can have an alder come in here and speak in the district too, and just talk about what's going on. The one thing that I just wanted to address, specifically, Mr. James, I look at these from the standpoint of what is presented to me, right? And then what is added in addition. And when I'm not hearing, and I didn't hear it, and I just want to make sure you're not hearing it a certain way because of how it may have came off with the alderman, is that it is, your application is sitting on the grounds of the nuisances that have been occurring. But I want to tell you this, it's just with any business, I'm in business development, with any business, you have to know the area in which you're walking into. You can't be oblivious to it. You have to know what you're walking into or what was there. That's just any rational way of looking at a business plan. So for us to absolutely ignore it, we're not doing our city justice. We can't walk into the city of Racine and treat it like something out west in Racine. It's just not the same, vice versa. We can't go out in the county and present, we have to know our area. So not once has anything been accusatory in a sense at you. It's we want to understand how well do you know the area so you can bring life to it and have all that positive success that Mr. Kemper or Dr. Kemper has talked about.
I lived in Racine my whole entire life, and I know the area very well. Racine is not that big. I know the area very, very well. But I do want to say this. It isn't the area, it's the people coming into the area that makes it a bad area. It's never the area, because the streets can't be bad by themselves. So it's the people that come into the area that make it a bad place. It's not the area. My mother, Lucinda White, was murdered right here in front of Pepe's Deli, right in the middle of the street, 2013. And this area isn't a bad area. She was literally blocks away from the police department. Okay, so it's not the area that makes things or makes the place a bad place. It's the people. And what I'm telling you guys is that I'm going to bring a different set of people into the area to uplift the whole area as a whole. I'm targeting a whole different crowd, a whole different atmosphere. And not only am I doing that, I'm going to change the eyesore that it is right now in Uptown. It looks like an abandoned building. I'm working on changing the facade of the outside and the inside. So it's a complete gut, a complete rebranding, and something new and fresh, and which is what Racine needs. We are saturated with a lot of poor quality bar lounges. I wouldn't even say a lot of bar lounges. We are saturated with a lot of poor bars, poor quality bars in the city that represent themselves as bars, restaurants, or what have you. And the reason why they don't succeed is because of the people that come to the establishment. And I have a plan to, if I am presented with this today, I'm going to close it and rebrand it as a whole so that it is better for not only myself, but again, the whole entire city and the community. If there's a nuisance there right now, and week after week, there's underage, there's all these things that you're telling me, there's this in the parking lot, there's that. If you vote against it today or prolong this, you are prolonging it for more issues to arise because the liquor licenses don't go away. They stay. They stay, which gives the people more opportunity to make these mistakes. Who's to say this doctor would come out of his house if you were so worried about these nuisances? Who's to say this man would come out of his house and the lawyer in the parking lot, he ends up shot? Then where do you slip? Then where do you stand? I mean, it's I don't know. I don't think it being deferred is the solution. I don't think that's the solution. I have a solid plan that I'm going to stick to, and I'm going to further come up with things, like I said, at first I was thinking 21 and up, but after hearing all the nuisances and all the, speaking with people in the community and hearing his concerns, personally, I wasn't told by anybody to go talk to him. I did that on my own because I'm trying to come up with a way where people like myself can come out and enjoy themselves in an establishment and not have to worry about being hurt or harmed, and can really enjoy themselves and have a nice drink and go home to my kids.
Okay, so, it is an option for our committee to defer it so we can get more information. It is not on the back of any committee members. If ill things happen in the next week, that is deferred. That is nothing that we wear in onus, and nor should be stated in onus. So we don't need, it's not an ultimatum. This is an option for us to defer it so we can get those things that you mentioned in writing.
I'd like to point out, Mr. James, you've had some great ideas. I appreciate that, and some, not to repeat what's already been commented, but you do seem to have some good ideas. But I want to point out here that I'll use a different term to try to sum up what the committee is trying to say. This is our point where we have to do what's called due diligence. And that's all we're trying to do at this point. It's not an indictment on the past or the future. But I just want to clarify that. This is due diligence, our responsibility. And I think someone else wanted to speak, so.
Tyrone Butler?
Yes.
Please. Please try to keep it 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, well, yeah, I just, in light of hearing what I'm hearing, Timmy came to me, offering to, I own the building, I own the whole property. He came to me offering to lease the lower, well, initially he came with some other females that wanted to lease the 15, 18. I was looking to, lease it out to people. I didn't know anybody. Well, how I first, Timmy came, you came with the girls for the floor. With them, right. And so then they were wanting to lease the property, or lease the 15, 18, because they heard I was looking like me and my daughter Shaquila was looking for somebody that, probably could be more successful with it than us or whatever to lease it out. And so then we were running the process. And then then I had another couple that came to me that was offering to lease it. And then Timmy came to me offering to lease it. And during the time, Timmy, I don't know, he like, his plan at first seemed to be the best deal or whatever. But as things been going on, I've been like constantly getting people that's coming to me saying that Timmy said he brought the building and that if you let him pay your taxes, he's gonna own your building and this and that. And so I try to ignore stuff. I don't know how this stuff got all out or whatever, but then people keep coming to me and so then when I have the alderman come to me about it, I thought, okay, well maybe I should come down here and say something. I've heard you have called him about the issues at the 1518 when it's my property. I don't know why in the world you would call him for it. I disagree with you guys saying the nuisance because a lot of the calls has been me trying to prevent things. If you look at the record, I say my name. When I called just the other day, I called, I felt the parking lot was too much. They were sitting there, they weren't coming in, so I called the cops to just have them clear it, Like, I refuse to have him sit up here and paint my...
Sir, I'm sorry, but this is not, I appreciate it, no disrespect, but this is not a time for that. We're simply here to make a decision on the transfer of license. So, please.
And speaker of my daughter in the license, like, only reason why we signed the license is because we thought it was going to be a natural transfer, not no takeover or whatever. And and she's not here, but I'm speaking for her, and we would ask for you to defer this so we can dig into this further.
Sir, okay, I got to stop you there, sir. I can't, you can't even do that.
Can't do what?
What, you can't tell us to defer that to him. No, sir, no.
It's okay.
Excuse me. You guys don't have to defer this. I'm going to withdraw my application for this. I'm going to withdraw. And, I withdraw my application because this went totally left field than what I expected. I have never patronized 1518. I have never stepped a foot in the establishment when it was running and operating. So I can't speak to personal experiences in 1518. I never felt safe to go to 1518, so it's not a place that I would patronize. So for him to say that I came up and try to paint this place to be Anything
Okay.
is not, it's furthest from the truth.
Okay.
I'm only speaking as.
You didn't approach me to.
I'm only speaking as to what the city attorney, told me it was.
Gentlemen, please, you can't do that. I'm sorry, you can't do that.
You guys don't have to, you don't have to defer this. I'll withdraw. And I will also say that the reason he's probably trying to do this.
Sir, please.
Okay.
He's just so,
Sir,
he's just trying to.
it's over with. We can't do it anymore, sir.
This to somebody else. And I can bring the person that he accepted $15,000.
Sir, it's done. Please, gentlemen.
All right, we're done.
I have to actually tell you, it's over. The meeting is over with.
Next item.
The
Move
meeting
to
is
receive and
over.
file.
No, I.
Move to receive.
Second. We have to, wait, do we have to
I don't want to do this.
does it have to be denied?
Okay, we've had a motion, receive and file. Any?
No, to withdraw.
There is a motion to receive.
Withdraw.
Oh, okay.
There's a
I heard
motion to
both.
receive and file.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to receive and file. I have a second. Any discussion?
You could just go to the city clerk's office tomorrow,
If seeing none, those in favor, please signify by saying
All
aye.
right.
Aye.
Motion passes to receive and file. Our final item is item number 36724, communication sponsored by myself on behalf of the city clerk's office, submitting a change of ownership application for a Class B intoxicating beverage and fermented malt beverage for Pubs on 6, LLC DBA Pub on 6, which is located at 910 6th Street, Benjamin Smith, agent. May the applicant please come forward. Attorney Arnn will now swear you in, sir.
Raise your right hand, please. Thank you. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Attorney Arnn, could you please let us know if there's anything in the Good Neighbor report?
Sure. So I've met with Mr. Smith to discuss business. Just a couple items of note. It looks like he did change his hours of operation. So the hours that you saw in the application packet have been updated to 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. He also updated the doing business as. And I received this earlier today, so I apologize, we didn't have a chance to add it to the application, but it is being changed to the Pub on 6. Mr. Schmidt indicates that there was I'm sorry, we can take one past now. There was a conflict with the youth Pub on 6, which is why he's asking for the DBA to be changed. The only thing that was really of concern is that Mr. Schmidt currently works for a real estate company in California, correct? He plans to continue working at that job while he is the agent here. He does plan to hire some help, however, he would be listed as the agent, so the person in charge of the premises. I did check with him to make sure that his residence is in Wisconsin. State law does require that you have to be a Wisconsin resident in order to be an agent. So it looks like he does legally qualify. The committee, as you know, has a lot of authority to determine who is the agent. So if it decides that it wants someone locally, you can talk to Mr. Schmidt about that. Assuming he's not here most of the time, you'll have to determine whether or not he is the appropriate agent in this case. There were really no nuisance issues to report, and there were no issues from the health or building department. Looks like he is in the process of applying.
Thank you. Sir, of course, I'll ask you what your plans are, but I want to address the first issue, your ability to properly manage and take responsibility as agent for the establishment.
Sure.
You're traveling.
Yeah, so I grew up here and went to Mitchell and Parkside. My girlfriend's a teacher at Parkside. I do live here, and I've been gone about a decade now, 15 years completely away from Racine. I'm a real estate broker in the state of California. I have a management company there, property management, and I've been buying and selling and also managing properties here for the last 4 years in total. A few $1 million worth of property. My friend Tony there.
Excuse me 1 minute. I'm concerned about the issues outside.
The police officer,
Hmm?
Sergeant.
Oh, he's still out there. Seem to be escalating. I'm sorry.
No problem.
Welcome to your first committee meeting.
A little excitement on Monday afternoon, huh?
Sorry.
Yeah, to address your issue specifically for me being a registered agent or the agent for the liquor license, I will be present, here in Racine. I'm in the process of selling my last assets in California and, just permanently coming all the way here full-time. And, I have been, over the last 4 years, spending 6 months, 9 months, and then now I'm here all the time. So I have a few more things to wrap up out there, selling the house and, purchasing the building tomorrow. We close escrow, pending this liquor license, and, that was the one concern that, it was a condition of the offer was to obtain this liquor license. Obviously, I don't want to purchase the building if I'm not allowed to have the liquor license. So, to answer your question specifically, yes, I will be here and present. I also have a local representative, bar manager, and a list of potential bartenders.
I understand that, but not to be rude, but
Sure.
you will be the person who is held accountable, not
Correct.
the other people.
Correct.
Okay.
Same way that I'm accountable for the, $4 million of other properties that I have in the city of Racine.
Are there any, yes, sir.
I have no problems with this. I talked to him at length about this. He does own other buildings, as I know in Racine, and that bar has never been a problem in probably more than 30 years. And I've been here doing this over 20-some years, and we've never really had any issues. We've always had good bar managers. Joey knows him. Joey sold it to him and stuff like that. And he's done, and a lot of stuff he wouldn't have had to do. I went over to the building, like work that wouldn't have had to be done. He went and did all this, went over and above and did all this stuff. So I have no problem that this is gonna be a good establishment.
Thank you, Alder, for that information. Anyone on this side that I can't see from the screen?
I do.
Yes.
Just a few things.
Sure.
One is, it's good to hear that you have this transition plan for full-time here, and you've been working on it for years. Yeah. So I'm sure your significant other has a role in that as well.
It's difficult having a long-distance relationship. She gets her PhD this year, and that's 14 years.
Yeah.
That finally comes to fruition.
Yeah.
That's, it's a lot of planning
Yeah.
and execution.
I feel the pain. I've been in
He has a
school for
picture.
over a quarter of a century, so I
Pictures
feel
next
it.
to the word planning in the dictionary.
Oh, my goodness. So I understand. So there are just a few things I just want to address with you, and you'll hear kind of it's going to follow the same theme as what you heard at the applicant before us. But on the application, it says, please describe how you intend to handle crowds during both the regular business hours and the bar close. I don't feel you addressed it, and I can read back what you wrote.
I remember what I wrote.
Okay. So it really doesn't address, you do have one of the second part of your sentence. So 40 people fit in the bar during regular business hours. Most people can park in the parking lot of a nearby downtown, and bar close will be at midnight. So if bar closing at midnight would constitute how you intend to handle crowds, well, now you have amendment to be open till 2 in the morning.
Correct.
So could you address that, because none of that addresses that
So
the ask.
to make sense, perfect sense for you to understand specifically, so if we have a private event between the hours of 6 a.m. and 2 a.m., I want to be able to let that be a part of our business. Private event hosted by our specific bartenders, and not have that effect or that limitation, if you will, on our hours of operation.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. You are, by law, you can do that. So whatever your business hours are what you are, I'm just going to go off of
Sure.
what you said. But you do have closing by midnight to answer, describing how you intend to handle crowds.
That's our normal hours of operation.
Okay.
And beyond that would be a special event.
Oh, it's okay. I don't think I understood that.
Correct. So
Okay.
that was in the amendment that was suggested.
Okay, I did see the amendment, but I didn't realize it was just for special occasions, you wanting to have that, because that is the right route to go.
Yeah, and 2 hours is plenty of time to clear out a building of that size, there's only 15 chairs at the bar, a small area in the back. I don't anticipate more than 30 people on a day-to-day basis. 30 people to exit the building and get home or get to their vehicle safely, however they're getting home, isn't going to take 2 hours.
So I know how you're saying 40 people only fit in the bar, so you're saying, yeah, it's not that many people, but,
15 chairs along the main bar,
yeah,
a small back area.
yeah. But in a small space, that is more sardine-like than if 40 people were in, you know, here with this open space, right? So, another thing, when you talk about you transitioning here, and, but yet you plan, I think I read, you have like 6 months to have it up and operating. You didn't talk about in the next 6 months moving here.
I'm already here.
Okay, but going back there while you're finishing out your deal?
And I have to bring back a trailer full of furniture for the upstairs apartment.
And that's that.
Pretty much, yeah. I still have a business there, my business partner's there.
That's what I was gonna address next. I did notice the next person on here is somebody in San Diego as
Correct.
well.
Yeah, I have a small advertising business there, that he's also a partner with me. I think in total about 7 businesses for myself. This is just one more to manage, but, me being here now is a lot easier to manage versus, you know, FaceTime's a great tool. It's been a huge advantage in my, fix and flip renovation, primarily like Caledonia, North Bay area. But, you know, it's a great tool to have so I can stay in contact with people, understand what's going on, actually see it. But now it's a lot easier when I'm here, obviously. You know, growing up down the street and going to Park and Mitchell, I know every single street in the city like the back of my hand.
Good.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
Did have someone sign up to speak?
Yes, please, I'm sorry.
Mr. Moran.
Hello.
Tony Barant, 333 South Vincent Circle, up in the north side of Racine. I'm here basically to support Ben in his endeavors. I met Ben about 5 years ago. He was calling on a property, and it basically started a relationship where I've been working with him for the last 5 years, and he's bought and sold a number of properties. He's delivered every single time, closed on every single one, renovated a number of properties, but he's a great property manager. He's got good people that work with him, and he's always delivered in the last 5 years, and I was trying to count, but it's quite a few transactions. And during that time, during the last 5 years, he's been back and forth to California, and I've had no problem taking care of business when he's back in California. They've had plenty of closings for him and his partner in California, but he's transitioning here, and he will be here. Keep an eye on this place, and I know he's going to be there on a regular basis, day to day, so I would.
Thank you.
I can confidently say it would be a good risk on the city side.
Thank you. I'm sure there's no one else to speak. No one on the committee has any other questions.
I have one question.
Yes, please.
Someone had to carry Yukon Jack.
I haven't met with, all of the liquor distributors yet. It's pending on the liquor license for my application. If you want it, I mean.
So, you know, it's very difficult to find.
Okay. We'll find it for you.
I'm glad I'm not the only one putting requests. Normally I have a vegan request for anybody who has food. Oh, I know, I see.
Too,
Yeah.
do it with a food truck, because we're not going to be selling food. Is that a problem in this?
That would be
There's a whole nother application.
Yeah, that's a whole different process.
Yeah.
Attorney Arnheder.
So specifically for alcohol licenses, when you have a Class B premises, there are no other businesses allowed on the premises.
Correct.
You can't allow a food truck in, for example, to use your kitchen or
No.
operate out of your premises.
And they can't be in the parking lot at all? That was
They
my
can be in
question.
the parking lot because that's not part of your licensed premises. So they can't be in the building, they can't operate out of your building.
And that was the other thing that we discussed was, does the license encompass the parking lot as well, or no?
It does not.
Does not, okay. There we go.
Yes, sir.
I was gonna say, that used to be included all the time, because sometimes they would have events out there. How did that get taken out again? Did you apply for that?
Yeah, it was in the drawing, I just didn't.
Why do these keep disappearing?
It was
There's
unclear.
never a problem with these.
Okay.
So every new application is treated differently. The
Okay.
licensed premise description doesn't transfer from owner to owner. It changes with every single application. It's whatever they ask for this committee, and it's whatever the committee grants. So when I spoke with Mr. Schmidt, he did ask about that, and then you said you wanted to not do that at this time, which is why it's not included as part of your premises. That's why
It's in the drawing, I just, I didn't know if there was other things that I had to do in order to keep that existing.
No, that's why we drew up the amendment that says the licensed premise description shall state lower level and basement storage.
Okay,
Right, and you
Sure.
signed it, just because we
Okay.
had that conversation.
that's
so
fine.
I could include it.
How do we go about getting that back in? He'd have to come back at a later date, right? But that wouldn't stop the license right now.
Correct, so whatever you
You would have-
decide today, if you decide to approve the license, he can always amend the license premise to add that portion later on. It would go, and again, in front of this committee.
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
Moving forward, if I had a plan, sorry to interrupt, if there was a plan to expand something in the back, that would be a good time to do that amendment and change at that time.
Yep,
Okay.
before you start using it for alcohol, you have
Correct.
to amend it.
I just want to understand for myself, so to be clear, if he amended the premise to include the parking lot, that he would not be able to have a food truck on there. He does not have the parking lot as part of the premise, then he would be able to have a food truck.
That is correct, so state law prohibits any other business from operating in connection with a Class B premises. So if you include the parking lot, then that would be part of your premise discussion.
I understand.
And I have one more
Go ahead.
question to that. Food trucks are allowed to park in the street, am I correct? Even if it's adjacent to a business?
Yes, subject to parking regulations, other stuff like
Henry Perez.
Yes, sir.
So, with that understanding, Attorney Sandu, since the premise is not, since the parking lot's not described in the premise, would he be responsible for the safety of the parking lot?
Well, that would depend on whether the parking lot is part of the parcel, or is it a municipal parking lot? I'm not
Oh,
aware.
it's part of them.
Isn't it just a couple
Part of his
spots?
property?
Yeah, it's right.
Two spots?
Right, so, I mean, if it's a part of his property, that's his responsibility. I'm not sure exactly what.
But then the license just applies to the building, even though that property is his, correct?
Well, the licensed premise description describes any area where alcohol is stored, served, sold, or consumed. So that would, at this point, be the lower level and the basement store. It just describes where he can have alcohol, descriptions of alcohol.
And when you mention liability, there's two different types of liability here. One inside, but the property owner's liability, which is a separate liability if someone slides in the parking lot and somehow ends up rolling down the hill or something. That's a different liability.
Yeah, that falls on the property owner
Right,
outside of the licensed area.
yeah. That has nothing to do with the license.
I have a
Yes.
for Attorney New. Hi. I just wanted to clarify again, because there was a lot of questions about the parking lot and the food truck. So you're saying if he did have the parking lot, he could have the food trucks, or no?
Mhm.
No, so he cannot have any other business on a Class B premises. So his Class B premises right now includes only the lower level and the basement storage. So within that area, he can't have any other business, including a food truck operation. Now, if he were to expand it to include the parking lot as part of his licensed premise where alcohol can be stored, served, consumed, then he can't have any other businesses on there, including a food truck.
Gotcha.
So, as you have it now, you can bring that vegan food truck. Great.
Another hypothetical, if you want to remove the pool table, you put in the kitchen where the pool table is, that would not be considered another business, and he would just have to amend the premise report, or the premise?
Table?
If he wanted
They
to,
added the kitchen.
they added a
Yeah.
kitchen is what she's saying.
Kitchen.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So if he had another kitchen and he's operating with his bar, it's
Yep.
not another business, it's part of his premise.
Yep.
He can do that, and there's an exception for a restaurant under the state statute.
You wanna get rid of that?
You didn't know you were gonna get all these great ideas?
Yeah.
Any other great ideas, questions, or concerns? Seeing none at
Move
this,
to approve?
Second.
any, discussion? Any comments, discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Good luck, sir. Watch these guys off the record. I can say, they'll have you doing all kinds of things. Vegan food, goat milk, oat milk.
No goat milk.
And that does exhaust our agenda to the license. We'll get to Attorney Arns. But for, right?
Well, the.
Yeah, your part,
Yes.
yes, but at the, agenda part of it.
Oh, this is on the
Yeah.
agenda.
Can we take a 3-minute break before you get started?
Okay. If I pause this from the live recording, can I pause this?
Oh, Naomi, is this hot? It's still live.
Do I mute it? Can I mute it?
Yeah. All right, well, thank you everyone for being here today. I know all of you already, I used my Alder Kelly today, so as you know, I advise this committee. So at any point, if you have any questions in between meetings or about any agenda items, please contact me, I'm always available. I do work part-time, so if you'll just allow me some time to get back to you, I try to do that, as quickly as I can. I work a couple hours a day in between my kids' naps, so whenever I can squeeze it in, I will try to call you
Be
back.
back in about a half hour, will you be done?
We are live.
Okay, so today, I just wanted to go over a couple things that we have here, and I do, so for those of you who know me, I do tend to be a fast talker, so if I'm going too fast, please just stop me. But today, we are going to be covering just a couple of basic and alcohol licensing reviews. And we'll talk a little bit about open meetings law, because Alder Pete had some questions and wanted me to address it as part of this training. And then I just wanted to provide you with some legislative updates that were just passed in December of 2023 as it relates to alcohol licensing as well as cigarettes. So we'll start off with this basic chart that talks about the different types of licenses. For most of you, this is a review. For Alder Kelly, this may not be a review, so please bear with me. So we have different types of licenses. We have Class A's, Class B's, and Class C's. So when you think of A for away. So convenience stores, liquor stores, grocery stores. You're taking alcohol, you're buying it there, and you're taking it to consume away from the premises. When you think of Class B licenses, think of B as bars. So most of the time, that's how you remember it. B is for bars. So when you see a Class B license, it's for a bar or a restaurant or a winery sometimes. Class C is usually just for wine only, and that would be usually at wineries or typically restaurants. Some people may prefer to apply for, the other type of licenses, little A's and big A's versus little B's and big B's. So when I say a little A, where the quotation is around just the A part at the top line there, we're talking about beer. Same thing with little B's. Little B's where the quotation mark is just around the B, that means it's a beer license. When you're talking about big Class A's and big B's, you're talking about where the quotation is around the word class and the letter A, or around the word class and the letter B. We're talking about intoxicating liquors. So that's really the difference. The reason sometimes certain bars will apply for a small B, which is a wine, as well as a Class C, is if we don't have a Class B available. So in the state of Wisconsin, we have a limited number of Class B intoxicating liquor licenses that we are allowed to grant out. Once we reach that quota, certain businesses that want that license will have to wait on the waiting list. They pay a fee, and when a license becomes available, they apply for that license. So sometimes you'll see a bar that doesn't want to wait. They can always apply for a little B as well as a Class C that allows them to sell beer and wine. And then if they wanted to get a big B down the road when wine is available, they can apply for that down the road. There's also a quota on the Class A's, and that's imposed by the city receipt. So there is a certain number that the common council decided it didn't want to go above in the city receipt.
What are those numbers for a Class A?
Ooh, you're really testing me on that one. I believe it's, Naomi, correct me if I'm wrong, 24 big Class A's, and then 36 little Class A's, little A's. But I have to double check. I haven't looked at it in a while. It should be in your binder, actually.
Oh, okay.
It's somewhere around 24 to 36, but I can get you the exact.
Now, in Class A's, there is a way to exceed the quota, am I correct?
Yes, so when someone applies for a Class A, if we are over quota, the ordinance allows them to bypass that number, the committee and the common council to bypass it, so long as they meet certain requirements. So, for example, we have to prove that their business brings more to the neighborhood than just another liquor store. They have to improve the value of the building and the tax somehow. There are other requirements, but yes, there are certain ways to do that.
Mention that because Woodman's coming in, I'm sure they'll be coming for, a quota.
So yes, when it comes, you will see a petition to exceed the quota. I will then advise you on what the requirements are, you can kind of go over all of that
Right
today.
over, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
people
there's
knew.
All right, so moving on here, just a couple things on municipal discretion in the granting of licenses. So I just wanted to let the committee know that it has broad discretion in deciding whether or not to grant a license. And part of that is because an alcohol license, as Alder Caprini pointed out earlier, is a privilege. It's not a right. That said, so there are some limitations on the committee's ability. It basically just states, so long as the committee is using good judgment and you're not discriminating, then you can deny a license application. So by discriminating, I mean treating two similarly situated applicants differently without good reason. So long as you're not doing that, you are pretty good to go. The important thing to remember is when you are potentially denying a license application, that you're stating the reasons on the record. You're discussing it at an open meeting. You're stating what your concerns are. That way, when there is a denial, it's put in writing to the applicant, and that is the record that goes to the circuit court if it gets appealed. So it's very important that, you know, whatever reasons you have concerns about, whatever reasons you want to deny, you are stating it out loud at the meeting so that we have a record of it. All right. It's a privilege because it's very, you know, once a person has a license, it's actually really hard to take it away. As you know, it requires a due process hearing. It requires specific reasons listed in state statute. It requires a hearing before the due process board. So you really want to make sure that you are using your discretion to, as much as possible, bring these licenses up front, because this is your only opportunity to do that. Once you grant the license, it's theirs. To revoke it, you have to go through a lot of steps in order to do that. You have to prove these allegations. So really the best time to deal with any issues that you see is upfront. And some of the ways that you can do that is to impose reasonable conditions on the license. So in certain cases when, you know, you're teetering on whether or not to approve or deny the application, and the concern is, for example, that, you know, they're operating more as a bar, even though they're claiming to be a restaurant. Well, a condition might be to require them to serve food anytime they're open, right? Because if they're a restaurant, they should be serving food the entire time. Maybe they shouldn't be opening until 2 o'clock if it really is a restaurant versus a bar. So when I say reasonable conditions, I mean anything that does not contradict with state law and anything that you have a good basis to be concerned about. So, you know, again, discussing what your concerns are, coming up with these conditions, and then placing it as part of the condition when you grant a license allows us to take swifter action when we need to suspend or revoke a license. Which really rolls on to the next point. When a license or an applicant applies for a license and they submit a packet of business plans and a license application, that is what's binding, what you have received in writing in your application packet. So when an applicant comes before you and they say, you know, I plan on doing A, B, C, and D, none of that is binding, okay? You can't hold them to any of those promises. Now, if you hear something from the applicant that's not in the business plan and you want to make sure that they abide by that, you have two options. You can either approve the application with the condition that whatever that person promises. So list that as a condition, you know, motion to approve with the condition that A, B, C, and D. Or you can alternatively defer the application, have the applicant come back in front of you after they've submitted a revised business plan. Again, anything in writing is what we can hold them to. So, you know, whatever they say here may sound great, but if they say that, you grant the license application, so you have problems down the road 6 months, you call them back before here and you say, well, you told me this, I can't do anything to hold them to that because it's not in writing and it's not made a condition. So that's just something important to note. Again, you can always defer. I know that this committee doesn't do that too often, but it is always a tool that you have because, again, once you grant the license, there's not a whole lot that you can do afterwards. So moving on to the due process, I stated before that when you are, after you've granted a license, if there are issues down the road, you do have to go through this entire process in order to suspend or revoke a license application. So you start with the grounds for it. So the ground for suspending or revoking a license is listed out in the Wisconsin statute. So it requires either that they're keeping or maintaining a disorderly or riotous, indecent, or improper house, that they've sold or given away alcohol to habitual drunkards, they don't possess the qualifications for a license, or that they're convicted of certain drug offenses for possession with intent to deal or delivering drugs. And then any alcohol violations under Chapter 6 of the ordinance. So with the grounds present for any of those, it then goes to this committee. And as the committee knows, every time you meet, typically, you have a licensed premises report from Sergeant Tillman. It lists all the times that the bar has been called or there's an issue at the bar. If the committee is concerned, it calls the person in pursuant to a formal expression of concern. And that just means you're calling them in, you want to hear from them because there's a problem there. Now, every time the committee makes a motion to call the person in, it's automatic. It's an automatic formal expression of concern. If they get the first one, it's a warning. The second one within a 6-month period, or the third one within a 1-year period, means they automatically go to due process. I'll talk more about the steps for that. But it's important to note that when a person is called in and you are, here, they're called in front of you and you are discussing what the issue is, the main point is to focus on how you're going to abate the issues going forward. You are not here with the applicant to have a contested hearing. You're not here to hear evidence about what actually happened. You're not here to fight with the applicant that, this or this did not occur. You are here to simply say, look, we've been notified. It looks like there's an issue. We're concerned. How are you going to address this going forward? If the applicant or the licensee, wanted to contest that, there's a time and a place for that when we get to the hearing stage. That's not for you to do here. And you will kind of want it to avoid any hearings where you hear the evidence or listen to videos or show pictures or hear from certain witnesses about specific violations. That's really for the due process board. So that's really how it gets here. It's also important to note that when you have the call in and the licensee comes before you and they talk to you about whatever the problem is and they say, well, it's going to be fixed. I fixed it, so we should move on. The committee at that point has 2 options. It could either receive and file, or it could rescind the formal expression of concern. If you rescind the formal expression of concern, it's as if they were never called in. So I recommend only using that when they were called in by accident, right? They were never supposed to be here. We just made a mistake. There wasn't a violation at all. Now, if there was a violation and it has been resolved and the person has been cited, great. Receive and file it, keep it on the record so that if something else happens down the road, you can still look back at the history and say, well, this happened 4 months ago. This happened 6 months ago. If you rescind it, it takes away your ability to do that, and it defeats the whole purpose of having an automatic system where you have, a 3-strike system, sort of, is what we have set up. So the other way that a person can get in trouble in certain circumstances, very limited circumstances, is for my office to file a summons and complaint. So this has been done very seldomly, and it has been done in cases where there are very urgent violations that keep occurring over and over and over again, such as when the police department calls me and tells me there's a bar, there are fights, every weekend. We try to go in, they lock the doors, they won't let us in, and there's 100 people on the street every week, right? In those cases, if it is a chronic nuisance, I have the ability to file summons and complaint, get them in front of the due process board, and take swifter action. I try not to do that because it's the authority of this committee to make those decisions, but sometimes when I'm requested by the chief of police or RPD, that is an option. So the due process hearing is before the due process board. that makes the recommendation. So they're the ones that hear the entire evidence. That's the time for the licensee to come in with his attorney or her attorney and to testify. That's their time in court. So they can contest it, but the board makes the finding, and then it goes to the common council. So the common council ultimately has that final authority to suspend or revoke. So that's why it's also important for you not to conduct an evidentiary hearing yourself before you get to that point.
I have a question on that. So, who staffs the due process board?
The due process board is staffed by 5 members. I think there's 1 alderman. There's a non-voting tavern member, and there are...
I know who the members are, but is it the city attorney's office that staffs that?
It's the mayor.
So, who's the liaison, staff liaison? Is it the
Oh.
attorney's office?
So the way we have done it in the past is it's bifurcated. I usually represent the prosecution, so I will present the case.
Okay.
Another attorney in my
Trying to
office
find
will
it.
usually advise the due process board. We've put up a Chinese wall in the middle so that there's no discussion and no conflict.
Okay. And then the recommendation goes straight to the council, it does not come back to the PSL?
Correct.
Oh, she was on the F. Oh, maybe it's that. Oh, here.
Any other questions?
I do.
Yes,
I have a lot of questions.
sure.
The 3 strikes, because I'm super familiar with this, but maybe not in the bar world. Is this also in the 90 days, similar to the nuisance properties?
No. So it is the second one within a 6-month time period. The third one within a 1-year time period. So the second one occurs within the month of the first, or let's say it occurs outside the 6 months, but then you have another incident, the third one, within a 1-year period of all 3, then that would go to due process. Now, it's important to note that when you go in front of the due process board, I know it sounds scary, it sounds like a big step when you're doing that, but when it goes in front of the due process board, the outcome can be a suspension for 10 days or 90 days of the license, or it could be revocation. So it's not necessarily you're going to due process, that means you're going to get your license revoked. A lot of times, I will negotiate with the licensee to resolve whatever the issue is, have them sign an agreement, and if they violate that agreement, then we would agree to a sort of suspension for a certain period in certain circumstances. So it's not always revocation. Any questions at all about?
No, it's just about this due process thing.
Yeah.
The reason, I always used to think, we used to be the judge, jury, and executioner on it, and I always thought that was not right. So this was an alternative to it, what I thought was a good idea.
Yeah.
Because people say our minds are already made up on the committee and stuff like that, so that's why we did this.
And that was precisely why the ordinance was changed.
And that's why the recommendation is that from the due process board was to go to the council rather than back to the...
That was part of it. Okay, so moving on to the open meetings law, I think everyone already knows this. By law, every meeting of the governmental body shall be preceded by public notice and shall be held in open session. So really the question is, what is a meeting? A meeting is defined as a convening of members of a governmental body for the purpose of exercising the responsibilities, authority, power, and duties delegated or vested to the body. The question that Alder Pete had for me was, when is it appropriate for committee members to talk to one another outside of these meetings? So really, to answer that question, you have to ask really 2 questions about whether this is a meeting. So when you are, for example, calling one of the committee members to ask a question about an agenda item and to discuss, how they feel about it, or you're emailing someone, or you're texting someone, doesn't matter how you do that. The question is really, what is the purpose? Is the purpose to engage in governmental business? So when you're calling that other alderman, are you calling to discuss a specific agenda item? Are you calling to discuss governmental business? Governmental business is defined pretty broadly. It doesn't just include a specific item on the agenda. So it also includes, for example, stuff that would go before this body. So for example, if you're talking about, what about all the nuisance bars in the city. Have you seen A, B, C, and D? Don't you think they're a nuisance premise? That would be something that would possibly go before this committee, and it is governmental business, and therefore it should not be discussed with another committee member. The second question is really, is the number of people present sufficient to determine the outcome? So there are 5 members on this committee. 3 is generally a quorum for most items. If you have 3 persons talking about a specific item and agreeing to a certain outcome, whether it's to approve or deny, that would be a violation. It's important to note, however, that that meeting doesn't have to occur at one place or one time. So for example, Alder A calls Alder B, talks about agenda items, for a specific bar, saying, well, I think we should deny for this reason and this reason. Alder B then calls Alder C to say the same thing. They implicitly agree. Alder C calls Alder D, and all of a sudden, before you know it, the entire committee has made a decision on the outcome of an agenda item, so that would be a violation of the open meeting. It's called a walking meeting. It doesn't have to occur at one place at one time. So the bottom line is really a properly noticed forum, such as these meetings, is really the only place you should be discussing. Yep. That's what the law was intended for. Okay, so I'm moving on to legislative updates, and this is really the bulk of the training this time around, because there were a lot of changes that were passed by the committee in by the state legislature and signed by Governor Evers in December of 2023, so just pretty recently. A lot of it has to do with the manufacturing, the wholesaler levels, the revenue levels. A lot of it is not relevant to this specific committee. So what I wanted to do is just to highlight something that may be more relevant, more important for you to know going forward. So by all means, this is not a comprehensive list, but it is something that I think are important. So just so you know, they are creating the Division of Alcohol Beverages, known as DAB instead of DOR. So within DOR, there will be this specific division. This is who the city clerk's office will contact if you have any questions. They have an entire enforcement sector. So it's just really for our purposes, it's a different name doing the same thing. So one of the changes coming through has to do with pre-mixing of intoxicating beverages. So right now, the law prohibits any retailers from really pre-mixing any intoxicating drinks, any drinks with hard liquor in it, before a customer orders it. So making it in big batches, for example, is prohibited because that's actually called rectifying under current law. This law now allows pre-mixed drinks. So a retailer can now make their drinks in certain batches ahead of time and then serve it to its customers. There are limitations on how big the container is, how big the batches are and stuff like that, but for your purposes, that is a change. The other change is producers. So producers, it includes brewers, manufacturers, wineries, really, those are the main ones. So in the city of Racine, we only have, I believe, one, and that would be a winery, Little Port Brewing. So the law changed so that they can now sell their own alcohol at their premises without a retail license. They don't have to come in front of the city anymore to apply for a license unless they are selling alcohol that's not produced by them. So they have a brewing license and a winery license. They can sell their beer and they can sell their wine. But if they wanted a full service license to sell any other alcohol that's not produced by them, they have to come in front of this committee and get approved for that license. They also have to get approval from DAP as well.
Well, I'm not sure what you mean by a retail license.
I'm sorry, a retail license is that chart of license at the beginning where I list Class A's, Class B's, Class C's. A retail license is a license that's issued by the city or any other municipality for the person to sell alcohol to consumers. So there's, I should have started with this, a 3-tier system, manufacturers, wholesalers, and retailers. So a manufacturer has to make the alcohol, who then has to sell it to a wholesaler, who then has to sell it to a retailer, who then has to sell it to the customer. So typically, you can only get your alcohol from a retailer, so a person with a retail license, issued by the municipality. So this exception makes, this new law creates an exception so that they can skip all those steps. A brewer or a winery can skip the wholesalers, skip the retailers, and sell their own alcohol to customers directly.
So we wouldn't even know if another place like the brewery that you just mentioned that make their own, if they opened up and somebody's business, we wouldn't even be made aware?
To a certain extent, yes. They do have to have a permit from the Department of Alcohol Divisions, or DAB, as they're now known.
Okay.
So they'll have to get a permit, so a brewery permit or a winery permit, but they don't need a license from the city. Full service, we just talked about that. So closing hours have changed for producers. Right now, it's sort of all over the place. So this change allows the producers such as Littleport, who will be selling their own alcohol, to have closing hours that match another Class B premises. So, for example, they can't sell alcohol at 4 a.m. in the morning. They can't open their doors to patrons or customers. They have to be closed whenever a Class B license is closed. So bar time, 2 o'clock on weekends, or weekdays, and then 2:30 on weekends, which makes sense.
So they don't have to come to us for any kind of changes or anything like that, because they get it from the state?
Correct. So, axe throwing facilities, if you wanted to throw axe and drink alcohol, you can now do that. It's an exception.
It's really
Awesome.
Yeah, it's an exception.
Access to alcohol?
I'm not going.
Stay away from the lanes, the end of the lanes. So as I mentioned before, under Class B premises, there are other businesses that are prohibited unless they fall under specific categories. This is now one of those. So,
And did all of those changes, they're already changed now?
actually, so the last slide I have on here is so the as I mentioned, all changed effective May 1st, 2020. Except for the creation of DAB, which was immediately after the act in December, and then some of these other ones vary. I'll mention so Class C wine licenses, typically, prior to this, it was only, eligible for restaurants, so they had to sell food in order to have a Class wine license. They no longer have to do that. So if a bar wanted to come in and apply for a small B and a Class C and not serve not serve food, they can do that. Retail licenses may now be transferred between municipalities so long as they're in the same county. They could do that before, but only if they were within 2 miles of one another. They took that out in the same time. So they would still go before you, you would approve, or deny, you still have that authority, but they can make that transfer.
How does that work? So if we were at capacity for Class B, Big B, then whoever applies for a license would negotiate with the other community?
So there is a lot of fine print on there that I did not, go through. But essentially, yeah, they would apply, and
Apply in Racine?
Yes.
And then they would state to the clerk's office that they paid whatever community, so we could exceed the limit?
yes,
And it still would come to be this committee?
yes. They'll come before the committee. Yes, sir.
Wait a minute. Down on Durand Avenue, where part of the street is Racine, other part's Mount Pleasant. So they could be in Mount Pleasant, come here, get a license over the border, and use it in Mount Pleasant, or vice versa?
Well, you still require the approval of the municipality. So,
Isn't that license just transfer to that municipality, basically, if we sell it?
you know what, I did not look at the fine print on
Okay,
it, so I apologize. I can get back to you on the specifics, but.
Don't tell anybody we're doing this now.
This could get sticky with the way the
Yeah.
municipalities are so close.
Yeah, I would have to research that a little bit.
And then one other question, so we hold the licenses, do we have to, I mean, they have to come to us for it.
Yeah.
Does the municipality have that licenses in Mount Pleasant? They come here to buy it, do we have to sell them to that, or no? How does that work? Because it's still gotta be somehow transferred by the municipality, correct?
Right, so if it comes into the municipality still has the authority to approve the location, the business plan, so it will go in front of you for approval. You could
So if I wanted to buy there was no licenses, and I came here and wanted to open a bar in Union Grove, because that's Racine County, I mean, so they would have to get some sort of transfer between municipalities, wouldn't they?
I would have to check on that. I know there is a large fee associated with this.
Well,
I don't know if
there
anyone
are.
would do that just to get the transfer,
Who
but
gets the fee?
Municipality,
Which one?
well,
what
whoever's
is getting
selling
it?
it, I believe.
I did not anticipate this many questions related to this.
Well, that
Well,
can,
no.
topic, so
Ours is up to
I don't
30
wanna
grand.
give you an answer.
Okay.
Certain about, so let me get back to you when I come.
Okay.
How many,
Oh.
sorry, how many, reserve licenses do we have left?
You know?
I do not know.
I know that I thought there was about 18 or 20, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, not
We've gotten rid of a few.
I have a question. So a lot of these changes that you're mentioning, is that the, reason because of the, new liquor licenses that came out just recently, or?
New liquor license?
I work at a municipality, so I know they had.
The new forms, you mean?
Yeah, is that some of that reflective because of this, or?
So this is a comprehensive act by the legislature that, had the cooperation of multiple manufacturers, wholesalers, retailers, a lot of, private interest groups in alcohol. They all came together, decided that all of these changes are needed. And so as part of that change, they created the, Division of Alcohol Beverages, DAB, which was required to create certain new forms for the municipality.
Okay.
So yes, they were required to come up with new forms because of this act.
Oh, okay.
Operators permits may now be issued by the Department of Revenue. So operators permits are bartender's license. As you know, traditionally, the city issues these licenses, or the city clerk does. And they can use it within the city of Racine. Now it can be issued as a permit through the department, which can be used in any municipality. They have the same, eligibility requirements.
So they won't come before this committee anymore?
Some people may still apply with the city, but they don't have to.
So they can use it, is it anywhere in Racine County or anywhere in the state of Wisconsin?
Anywhere in the state, any municipality.
so it's like a driver's license.
And who approves that, the clerk?
That would be the Department of Revenue, sorry, Department of Alcohol Beverages.
Oh,
Permits are issued through the state, and then licenses are issued.
okay.
And that would be effective actually January of 2020, not effective. No sales event venue, I'm sorry.
So what is that, I mean, so we can't open a wedding barn here?
Yeah, so this has to do with wedding barns.
Because I thought they were okayed fine now.
Yes, so all of this changed with this law, although it's not effective until 2026, so January of. But what this new law does is it requires wedding barns to use one of two things if they are going to continue to operate. They can either get a no sales event venue permit, or they can get a full Class B license. Okay? A no sales event venue permit allows a person to sell or to have a beer and wine up to 6 times a year and 1 day a month for the consumption. They can do that without a license. So basically, they would allow a person who rents out a wedding barn to come into the premises. They would either hire a caterer to come in, serve the alcohol. They would still have to purchase it at the premises where they're buying the alcohol. But that would allow them to consume on the premises, would not violate the violation against public consumption on the premises. That will be coming soon.
Festival Hall is a wedding barn?
Festival Hall is actually ran by a contractor who took out a Class B they have a retail license because it's not actually operated by the city, it's operated by, they can have your. All right. So, some changes with respect to cigarette, tobacco, and vaping products. As you might have noticed, on the application for Los Ultra Entertainment, there was actually a new license for cigarettes, tobacco, and vaping products. So this is something that's new. Current law only requires a license for cigarettes and tobacco, and then current smoking laws, prohibitions against smoking in the state statute only prohibits it if it contains nicotine. So technically, if you have a bar, for example, that wants to do hookah, and they are smoking the liquid that is nicotine-free, that does not violate indoor smoking prohibition. They can technically do that. This new law eliminates that because it defines, so what it does, it requires a license by the city for electronic vaping device, which is defined as any device that is used to deliver any aerosolized or vaporized liquid or other substances for inhalation, regardless of whether the substance contains nicotine. So this includes e-cigarettes, e-cigar, e-pipes, vape pen, and e-hookah. It also includes the component or part of the accessory of the device, so it includes the liquid and the substance that may be aerolized or vaporized, regardless of whether. So that's why they are required to apply that now. Apply for that license and get it granted before they can do that inside bars, restaurants, or other. And this was effective March 6th of 2024. So it's now in place.
You can put THC in them and stuff, bars.
Well, THC is prohibited by state law already.
Checking.
So no.
So, thank you for this, because I know we've had some discussion about hookah on this committee. With that going into effect, so will all of our establishments now have to come and apply? Because a lot of them do allow those electric cigarettes, or I don't know the right terminology, but if you go into establishments, you know, people are puffing on things, so.
But they are required to get a license. Now, when you talk about implementation, that's another matter. How we're going to do that.
And enforce it. How are you gonna enforce it?
So will we push that out to all of our liquor establishments now?
That would be up to the city clerk's office. Amber's not here, I don't know.
I just think because this new law is in effect, we really, to adhere to it, to at least be doing our part as a city, we really should be. And if it can be an encouragement by this committee to help the city's clerk's office, because we would want to adhere to any new laws, so we should probably email all of our liquor establishments.
Agreed. So the clerk issues these licenses unless the reason it's before you in the application packet is because the city clerk's office likes to add that, all of those applications together when you have a liquor license, so you know what they're going to have. So, for example, non-intoxicating beverage license doesn't typically go before this committee unless it's part of the alcohol package.
We do an annual on these establishments. Could that not be part of their annual?
But I don't know if they're in the process of emailing that out, or they do that already, sending out renewal paperwork? Yeah, it's already out.
It already went out.
What's the question?
Because of this new law, we need to alert the establishments. I figured it could go along with their annual renewals.
I know the new licenses have that new application that's.
But we need to make sure even the old ones, the existing ones in our community are adhering to this new.
Oh, I mean, that sounds excellent. I would really refer that to the actual clerk and, deputy.
Perfect.
Just send them an email of what you're thinking, and that's right with it.
So this is just a review of the effective dates, which I already mentioned, but that's really all I have.
That was good, Mark.
Really quick to do this fast.
But you did a good
That
job.
was one of the quickest ones,
Yeah,
so.
that was pretty quick. I just came back from a conference, so I'm gonna say that was quick and painless.
Couldn't answer a lot of our questions.
Sorry,
She doesn't
don't know
know.
everything I have to
Do
look
you
at.
wanna close out the agenda,
Huh?
so we can, we're still live, so if you wanna end the agenda.
You work from home a lot.
We are adjourned. Want to stop it?
Okay, do you wanna stop the?
Very- It's not, is it live stream?
Yes, it's still live.
Yes, I'm gonna ask her.
Well, how are you controlling that?
We'll have her put it in your.
What I have to say on the record,
Okay, I'll have her do that.
Do we want it on record? Wait.